always kind of told people what I love to do. I always said that I wanted to work in a certain career field. I kind of had everything paved for me. Um, I never veered from that. And that's what people knew about me. That's what they
Mm-hmm.
expected. And that's what I expected of myself as well. So all of a sudden, to start telling people that I was doing something new, even before I didn't have my career anymore, that was terrifying. I was
Yeah.
so terrified of what people were going to think.
Welcome to The Ownership Game with Gary Montalbo. What would it take to get into the driver's seat of your life and leave your mark? The Ownership Game starts now.
Today we speak to entrepreneur Gretchen Schaller Behar. After spending over 16 illustrious years developing marketing strategies for some well-known fashion brands, Gretchen's life, career, and future got turned upside down when the now infamous five-letter word hit: COVID. With retail shops shut down worldwide, there was no work to be had. So Gretchen had to reinvent herself and lean into a desire that had always lived deep within her to do her own thing. So she embarked on a journey to turn her side gig selling skincare and makeup to her friends and family into her full-time business. It was a challenge, but business was good and she was growing. But like many during that time, the isolation was hard. So when things started to open up, she decided to post on some local Facebook groups to see if any moms wanted to get together and just talk. That was the start of Mompreneurs, a networking group that, as the name suggests, is focused on creating connection and community for entrepreneurs who are mothers. Now, before you roll your eyes, this episode is not really about networking or being a mother for that matter. It's about the power of what can happen when you take personal responsibility for creating what your heart desires, and more importantly, what your heart needs. As you listen to today's episode, ask yourself, what calls from your heart have you not been answering? And allow yourself the gift of wondering what wonderful things could happen if you did. So why don't we start at the beginning? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where'd you grow up, and what was your life like, and all of that good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me. So I am a Florida girl. I claim Florida as my home state. So I am living back here for the last 10 years. I was a military child, so we traveled all over. And I
Okay.
went to Florida State University, again, Florida. I always thought I knew what I wanted to do, and I did. And I went out and did it, and I was so happy to do that. I moved out to Los Angeles and started my career in fashion, and that's what I always had wanted to do. I did it, and I was in there for like 16 years or so. I was in that industry, and I absolutely loved it. And went out to LA, met my husband, had 1.5 kids, one on the way, and realized, I was still that Florida girl that wanted to move back to
Uh-huh.
my roots. We didn't have any family or anything out in California. So that made things a little bit harder as I became a mom. So my husband talked him into it. Talked him in. He was not a Florida person. He was a New Englander
Uh,
that had transplanted out to the West Coast for work as well. So we moved back to Florida, and this time though, South Florida. I'm a Northern Florida girl, but moved
uh-huh.
to South Florida because of work. But both of our jobs, we were able to work down here in South Florida. This part of the state, it's just so big and booming and growing.
Yeah.
Especially like where I am right here right now is just like doubled since I've lived here for the last 10 years. So moved back here, had my second child, my son, and then realized it was time to go back to work. Found myself down in Miami. I've come from a corporate retail background, so I've worked for large corporate retailers doing marketing and marketing visuals, designed window displays, I produced visuals, I've traveled overseas. Really just had an amazing time doing what I was doing, and was really lucky to work at two huge, amazing companies and learn so much, and just absolutely loved it. Was so glad I was able to find that in Florida, because it's typically like a New York, LA type of, career
Mm-hmm.
field. Did find one company down in South Florida, worked there for about 5 years, and was loving it. Everything was going great. And then COVID,
Then
COVID
COVID
happened.
happened.
COVID
Famous
happened.
last words.
Famous
Then
last
COVID
words.
happened.
How many stories like have this milestone in them now? For real. Like so
Yeah,
many.
we're gonna be unpacking this for a decade at least.
It's it
We're still trying to understand what happened.
we're still trying to understand it. We're gonna explain it to our kids and our grandkids, and it's gonna be a lifelong, like, it's part of us. It's a part of our
Yeah,
lives. I
for
mean,
sure.
just so many stories are kind of, I think there's like a rebirth that happened, and that's been happening since COVID.
Yeah.
And I definitely say my story was a huge part of it. There was always I told you my dad was in, or I told you I was part of a military family, and my dad was in the military. When he retired after 27 years from the Air Force, he was always an engineer, a builder. He really inspired me because he was an entrepreneur. And when
Mm,
he retired from one career, his military career, which was a lengthy career, he kind of really got that entrepreneurial side out. That's when it really came out in him. He started his own business. He developed a lot of things, all kind of related back to the military. But I got to see that come out of him and the passion he had for it.
mm-hmm.
And I always knew that side was in me. And probably at the time, when I started in my career, which I really always loved my career, I had a creative, and I still could be my planner. I'm a little mix of kind of the creative side, and I love to do all this stuff behind the scenes too. So I really always knew there was a part of me that was an entrepreneur. I just really didn't know like what to do with it. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
how to do it, and I truly wasn't ready to ever take. I never felt like I was ready to take that step
Mm-hmm.
from corporate America, that safety blanket of that paycheck, having your insurance and your benefits and your
Yeah,
401k, and
it's
all
real.
those things. You feel that it's a safety blanket, like it's going to be there, but the truth is it's not always going to be there, because things can
Mm-hmm.
change. And that's what happened to me in 2020. COVID happened. I remember, I had just been in New York, traveling to New York. We just got back. I actually took my daughter on a camping trip. Someone there had COVID. We found out
Mm,
later that had COVID, and we didn't think that it was touching us. We didn't really think that, you don't think it's ever going to touch you, your community, people around you. So it did. And, not, we didn't, all of a sudden, everything was changing. And unfortunately, my company had to adapt to that. And I'm in marketing, and my whole team and I were let go at that time.
mm-hmm.
We were, it was retail. There was nothing open.
Nothing was
Um,
open.
Nothing was open. All the offices are closed. We're all home, and everything shut down. And I got furloughed for a month, and then was let go. But something really interesting happened during that time. So I had an interesting transition period, because I didn't have that happen and then have to figure it out. I actually had, something had happened to me, and I took a leap about a month before that. I have a friend who had started her own business. She's actually somebody I worked in Los Angeles with, and I had seen her grow and developing her business. And it was in beauty, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I always kind of wondered what it was, didn't really get it. She had reached out to me, and I needed some skincare. So I was like, okay, why don't I she's like, just do it. And I was like, okay, well, I can just do it for fun. I'll get a discount. It'll be cool. So why not? I have my job. This isn't a job. So I just thought it would be something fun to do. So I took a leap. And at the time, I didn't really look at it as starting a business. The time it was just
Mm-hmm.
something I happened to do in the moment. And my husband, it's so funny. My husband saw something in it, I believe, because I went to him and I said, do you think this is cool? Like, would this be okay? Like, I just want to run it by you. Do you think this would be something that I should do. Like, it's not going to burden anybody. Like, we're going to be good. And he's like, yeah. He's like, of course, not a problem. We can totally do that. And I did. And at the time, I was only really telling my friends and my family about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I told them, I joined this company. It's just kind of like a little side gig. Like, it's for fun. I'm trying the products. Come try them with me. So it was friends and family at first. It wasn't
Yeah.
anything I was really like full force going into. But then COVID happened. I lost my job, and my husband and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, okay, so you're going to go find something else? And I'm like, I kind of feel like I was put in this place where I should be right now. This is where I'm supposed to be. I wasn't devastated, which is
Mm-hmm.
shocking because I really, really do love what I was doing. I've always loved it. I still love it to this day. So I always but had that I gave me that nudge to finally like take that chance on myself
Yeah.
that I hadn't done before. And the timing of it couldn't have been better. So we both decided, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, this is what's right for us. We were in the position we could do it for now. So I took that leap, and that's what I decided to do. I decided, like, how am I going to do this? Okay. So obviously during the time it had to be online, it had to be on social media. Nothing was in person, unfortunately. So for the first year of my business, it was all online. It was all phone calls. It was all virtual. And I loved it. It was really cool, totally different. It incorporated a lot of the things I already knew and loved. I was already in marketing, so I got to now market myself, which was a totally different thing than I have ever done before. Putting yourself in front of the camera, putting yourself in
Mm-hmm.
front of people. That took a big leap. It's the first time I ever did a
Yeah.
Facebook Live. It's the first time I did. It was so many firsts for me. And
Okay, so let's pause there because
yeah,
you take this leap, and I mean you're talking about it like it's sort of fearless, and in
not
that
at all.
moment, you can like you just the way you told the story was like yeah. So let's just talk about that transition because I think a lot of people can relate to the calling, can relate
Mhm.
to always wanting to having that urge inside, but it's not the right time, it's not the right moment, I'm not ready. And so I think it took something for you to, yes, timing happened, but it did take something for you to leap in and answer the call.
Mhm.
So give me a little bit of what was going on in your head in that moment, and what was that like for you?
Thank you for pushing me back. When you talk about something that's happened and you've moved on from it, sometimes like we have that confidence
Yeah,
about it. But I don't want anyone to think that because you're totally right. It was not that easy at all. Part of it was because the excitement part of it, but it wasn't. I had a great support system at the time, which helps a ton,
yeah.
and I still do to this day. But I was terrified. It's a scary thing. I think because I was kind of didn't have a decision to make about leaving. If the decision for me would have involved stepping away from that safety blanket that I had in my career, it would have been more terrifying for me. And I honestly don't know if I would have ever done it. I think I would to this
Mm,
day still be doing and where I am. I don't think I would have taken that leap, to be honest.
mm-hmm.
I maybe I would have. I hope I would have, but I don't know that I ever would have. But the terrifying thing for me is, like I started this off, I always kind of told people what I love to do. I always said that I wanted to work in a certain career field. I kind of had everything paved for me. Um, I never veered from that. And that's what people knew about me. That's what they
Mm-hmm.
expected. And that's what I expected of myself as well. So all of a sudden, to start telling people that I was doing something new, even before I didn't have my career anymore, that was terrifying. I was
Yeah.
so terrified of what people were going to think. I,
Th- that was one of
yeah,
the questions I had for you because
yeah,
often that stuff becomes our identity. Like I
hmm,
remember for me, so
that's,
my transition was from I was a designer, I was an art director,
mhm,
and I had worked really hard, I had
yeah,
a certain pedigree. I worked
mhm,
in these reputable companies. I had this resume and this
yep,
portfolio, and it was like, and I had worked to build that. And then all of a sudden to like start new and say, "Oh, I'm leaving my career, 15 years."
hmm,
It was like my ego was like, I remember my
oh,
ego getting like really triggered.
for
So
sure.
yeah. Yeah.
I 100% agree. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
People don't know another side of you. People get comfortable in what they expect from you. And when we change that up, it just throws everybody through a loop. So I had a lot of people, of course, that were very happy and excited for me. All the
Mm-hmm.
people, for the most part, that I thought would just be okay with it and excited were kind of shaken. And it seemed like they were kind of pushing back. They didn't really know what to say. It almost was like it was making them nervous. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but this was my decision. It truly
Yeah, yeah,
didn't
yeah.
affect them. To them, it doesn't matter what I do. It shouldn't. You wouldn't think that it matters. Like if I said, Gary, I'm not going to do what I'm doing anymore. I'm not going to be a Limelife Beauty Guide. I'm not going to have my business. I'm not going to be the head of Mompreneurs. I'm going to go out and I'm going to fly airplanes. I'm going to be a pilot, like for a major
Yeah.
airline. Like that
Yeah.
wouldn't affect you really. Like it's
Yeah.
not really going to affect you. But for some reason, it just feels, part of you feels like it's letting people down,
Uh-huh.
your friends,
I
your
remember
family, the
that.
people closest to you. You wonder what people are going to think of what you're going to be doing next.
Yeah.
I was very, I was going into direct sales. My idea of direct sales was, I wasn't honestly very familiar. I hadn't really done anything before. I had hardly purchased anything. Most of my friends and family worked in corporate positions. I didn't really
Yeah.
have any friends in any other direct sales companies. So I was really, really separated from that world. I didn't come from a community where that was accepted or that was even talked about. Not because
Mm-hmm.
there was anything wrong with it, it just wasn't a part of my community.
Yeah.
So to all of a sudden do that, to do something that you technically you don't even need a degree for. Anybody can do it. I looked at that probably in life, if I had to, as maybe a negative. I was somebody experienced. I was the head of a major department. I just, that wasn't something why would you ever do that?
Yeah.
Is what I would have probably thought of anybody
I
else in that same position.
I get it. I get it
And
so much.
and to this day that always follows you a little bit. You have to we'll get into that, I guess, but it's tough, and that conversation took a long time with a lot of people, and it takes a long time for people to get used to. I think when you show people your passion for it and how you're doing it and your excitement for it, I feel like that's helped me a lot
Yeah.
overcome all of that. When they see your success, when they're a part of it, um, when you involve them in it because you want to share with them what you're doing, what's happening, when they get a more of a window into it, I feel like it was a learning curve for me in the beginning, and it was a learning curve for those around me. But it's not, I don't feel like that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that it's a learning curve anymore. So it is absolutely terrifying. I was even terrified to tell my husband, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but the thing is, what's amazing about him, he was so supportive. Like I don't even feel like I had one eye of judgment at all when I told him. And that's just how you know you have the right person for you.
True,
When
true.
they're supportive of you no matter what. And my kids were too young to know any different. So they just know what I do now and they're a huge part of it. So
Love it. Okay, thank you for indulging me there. So let's go back. You start this, you are 1 year into it during lockdowns, and so everything is virtual.
yep.
How there's a big learning curve, obviously. You're learning all the things, you're shedding your old identity and creating a new one and all of that. So how yeah, I guess, keep sharing your story.
So I was like a year in, and I feel like I had kind of plateaued in things. The world obviously was a whole other story, and I was kind of adapting my business to it as we went. And I just realized, I kind of got that itch that I needed to kind of evolve, not just, as a person, but also, as in my business, as a person, my family. Like we needed the next step. Like I think everybody in some way kind of probably had an itch, in 2021, 2021 needed to be different than 2020.
Yeah.
2021 could not be the same thing. We could not continue to live the way we were living, to be secluded. People are naturally social. We don't live
Yeah.
alone. We're supposed to be around others. And I am definitely a social person. I'm a more the merrier type of person. I will continue to invite people into, a car of four when I'll invite 20 people. Like I just like to have everybody around. So I really find, that was one of the ways I kind of had that itch in 2021. And I was trying to think, like, what can I do? Like, how can I get out there more? What are the things that I want to get back? And I really missed from being in a corporate setting and having, my work friends and everything around me. I missed being able to go to lunch with people. I missed that was part
Mm.
of my day. I missed going out to maybe like happy hour or something after work. I missed doing all of those things. So I thought, okay, well, I need to get out there. I need to meet more people. I need to put myself out there. I had already seen this amazing community at Lime Life, which had inspired me. But it was all virtual. Everything was virtual that I was a part of, just like most of us. So I had posted, I was a part of, and I still am, so many different online Facebook, social media groups that I have found over time, with moms, with women, with parents, with people who are into fashion, with people who are into beauty. I've always been in so many of these groups. So I had reached out and I said, this is my story. I'm a mom. I posted a picture actually of my two kids and I. And I said, I'm a mom, ready to get back out there. I used to work in corporate. I started my own small business at home during this time. I'd love to meet other people in the same position as me. And it was just with the intention of putting myself out there and meeting more people and
Mm-hmm.
getting out of the house. And so we did. We met. I had a bunch of people kind of respond, and I didn't know what to think of it. Turns out 12 other women met me that evening, and I was
Wow.
honestly blown away. I had no idea, and I knew none of them. I knew none of them. I did bring one friend with me who was on my Lime Life team, that had joined me, that worked actually in the same office as me in my corporate job. And she had gone with me that night, and 12 other people. And I was just so shocked. And we continued. I made it into a monthly thing. And we continued to meet. I had new women coming in. I had started a chat group for us. It grew. I had to start the Facebook group for us. It grew. We had 300 women in that Facebook group by the end of the first year. And then it over doubled, and now we have 1,800. So
Wow.
I grew into something that was not my full intention in the beginning to run a group like this, to be the leader of this huge networking group. But it's been, one of the biggest blessings to have this. And I contribute so much to it. I know the timing, obviously, a lot of people, the time frame and the transition out of 2020 really was a huge part of it for sure. Would it have been as successful 10 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago? I have no idea. But I do know that it's still huge because I welcome in like 40 or 50 women a week sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just incredible. Once you start building and compounding all those people, it's just the word of mouth is amazing. And we just have this amazing community now. And it officially is our mompreneur group, and it's women all over Broward County, mostly West Broward, but we have women all over, and it's really amazing. And I actually have somebody starting another group up in the northwest of the country that moved away, and she started her own group now too.
You're franchising?
I know. Isn't that incredible?
I love it. New chapter? Wow.
I know. It's really every day it just grows and grows. It's completely amazing. And what I learned at the beginning, I've learned so many things. I mean, it's so funny how you don't ever think that you need to go on a journey, and
Mm-hmm.
a journey could be good for everybody. There's always room for us to grow. Like 2019, beginning of 2020, I would have said, if you said, does something need to change? Like, what would you like to change in your life? Do you need to grow in a certain way? Are you unhappy with anything? I would have told you I was totally content. I was very
Mm-hmm.
comfortable and content for sure. But the
Yeah.
world just has a weird way of throwing things at you. So,
Yeah. No, and if I think there's so many things to unpack here, but
yeah.
in some ways the game becomes comfort. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with it.
Hmm.
But if you look at some of the things that we aspire to, it is a certain level of comfort, certainly financially and where you live and all those things. but I think you're also pointing to the desire to grow and challenge ourselves and innovate in some ways, because then you can get too comfortable, and that also has an impact, right? Okay, I love your story so much, and I really wanted to invite you to the show because I find myself, I mostly have ended up working with women in my career as a coach, and very often, the so I feel a little weird talking about this because I'm not a parent, so I don't want to like sit here and mansplain. But very often, what happens in my experience to mothers is that now their children become a limitation, a circumstance as to why they cannot do certain things. And their business is one of those things that often becomes one of those things, or how they end up working their business gets really confined because
Mhm.
you know their children are you know being children, right? And I also think that I think it's important to acknowledge there's an incredible amount of pressure these days on moms to be like both Instagram moms and do all the things, and like like in my day you made a home cake, you made a cake at home, and you got a balloon and hey, happy birthday.
Right.
Now it's like it's gotta be Instagram worthy. It's like there's gotta
Always.
be all the displays and all the things, and I'm just like, oh my
So
god,
true.
I'm so glad I don't have children because my children would be miserable because I'm just like, what? I'm not doing all that.
You would do amazing. I have no doubts.
I'm like, I'm not blowing up 700 balloons. No, no, no.
You know what's funny?
um,
Kids love what they have, though. They know what they know and they love what they have. So,
I think you're right. I think you're right. But there is a lot of pressure. I feel
mhm,
like,
there's
we live in an Instagram world now, and, friends, kids are on Instagram, they're watching what their kids' birthday parties are. And so I do think there's a lot of pressure. So I also want to acknowledge that. But one of the tips that I often give moms is like, guys, just get a bunch of you together and create a
mhm,
little club. Like,
yeah.
you watch my kids tomorrow, I'll watch your kids today, and you work your business while like, there is ways that if we get out of the sort of reactionary, because sometimes so much of being a mom, I think, is just responding to your children's needs, right?
Mhm.
Um, but if you can step out of that reaction and get creative like you did, there's like all these opportunities that can actually happen because you're not the only mom going through this, right? You're not the only mom feeling isolated, or you're not the only mom feeling like you don't have enough time, or so. I mean, heck, we all feel that throwing kids is like even worse. So I love this story so much, and I love that you did this because I think it's such a valuable lesson of creating what's missing, right? And really answering, hey, I need community. And what's really cool about it is that this wasn't really a business strategy for you. It wasn't like, oh, let me go network and meet people and do that. This was
Mhm.
really what fills my cup, what lights me up.
Yeah.
What do I need to create the safety, enthusiasm, momentum,
Mhm.
and passion to keep working my business,
Yeah.
which is also really smart because a lot of us don't approach it from that way in terms of filling our cups and what do we need in order to keep going.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you know, it's interesting. I have so much I could say about all of that. The one thing I do want to say about a very what happened to be now in hindsight when I look back at it, a very important thing about what I did. An interesting thing is when I first started this group, well, let me step back. Before I knew it was a group, when I was doing
Mm-hmm.
this, it was what it was. It wasn't, for any particular purpose outside of wanting to have human connection and getting out there and talk to people and meet people. But when it started to become more, and when it really started to become networking, and it never has felt like networking. But I also, in the beginning did have a bit of a fear in the back of my head that I didn't want to lead too forward with my business. I didn't develop it really from the place of networking, and I didn't talk about my business that much because I was a little afraid that people would not think I was genuine, and they would think that this was literally just to get customers or to grow a Line Life team, with my company, with my business. So I was very afraid of that for a long time, and I truly didn't even talk about my business for that. Probably I didn't even mention it hardly for the first 6 months. They knew that I
Mm.
had a business at home. I didn't really, unless we had become friends on Facebook or something, they wouldn't have seen what it was because I didn't really talk about it. And then over time, people started to like ask me more questions, and I realized, if I'm going to put this much time into this, I need to do what the other women are doing. Like, I allowed them to network. I didn't have rules in the group. I still really don't. You just have to be nice. It being nice,
Mm-hmm.
we want to keep, that going, but and be respectful. But I didn't talk about the business at first. I was genuinely afraid that that would turn the whole thing south. So, my group and the whole idea behind it, and meeting people, is always you're connecting with them as a human first. It's at a human level first. You have to, we all know that when you buy something, especially in small business, you're buying from the person. You're not buying, the product. That's not what you lead with. And I do feel that that's why I have actually gotten so much success out of this for my actual first business, because everyone has seen what I've done. They've seen the community. We help each other. We collaborate together. We do so many events together, and I do so many things for them because I do get a lot out of it. I love creating those connections. I always tell people, when you're a mom, was there a part of you when you were going to work every day, for working moms that had to leave the house and work or be away from their children for whatever reason? Did
Yeah.
you Google, like, how can I still make money and still see my kids and still have a good schedule? I didn't really, for some reason, get any of this. Like, I didn't get that I could be doing what I'm doing now. It wasn't in my like line of sight that I could be doing any of this. So I have realized over all this time that the things that mean the most to me about my business, my group, everything, is that connection, and is building the community to help connect people, personally, who might need it, friends that might need it, and then also to help people build their business and collaborate. I love seeing that when I see two people meet for the first time and they connect, and then I go and I see that they're doing, an event together, a live together. We've had people go into business together, and
Wow.
start other businesses. We've had women come in. I always have women introduce themselves and tell us about them. You don't have to go too personal, but we want to know you. Like, tell us about you. And then for sure, tell us about your business. How did you start it? Like, so many people want to start a business and they don't know what the first steps are. They feel so alone doing it. Women don't like to be alone. We like to help other people. We like to have that connection with others. We like to build those relationships. So, they connect, and then they are able to connect with others to help them in whatever part of life it is. The group is Mompreneurs, but I always say it really is all women. And, maybe one day it'll be men too. I don't know. I don't close off anything. Everything is
Yeah.
possible. So I always
Well,
tell people,
you invited me one day, so I had the
I
honor of
did.
attending too.
I did. Well, they needed to meet you, Gary. I
Thank
felt
you.
like they needed to meet you. It's
Thank you.
grown
Thank
me a
you.
lot knowing you, and I feel like it will do the same for them.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It was so much fun. And, I want to dig into the culture a little bit because the next question that was sort of emerging for me was really inside of leadership.
Hmm.
And I know that you had some previous leadership experience because obviously you ran teams and you ran departments and you had to work with other departments in
Right.
corporate America. So you're coming to the table with a lot of leadership.
Mhm.
But even with that experience, I want to highlight for our listeners, you were still in the question, in the doubt, in the discovery. You're like, oh, I don't want them to think that I'm trying to, or I want them to know that I'm genuine, or I want them to know. So there's just even with all the leadership experience that you have, there's still humanity there, right? We all still have our doubts and we still struggle. I mean, heck, I'm a leadership coach and I still have those moments quite often. I think their leadership comes in the handling of it, in the not avoiding it, in the still moving forward,
Mhm.
and finding a solution to work around that concern. Um, so, I mean, you've been talking about this, but I wonder, it sounds like it happened kind of organically, but did you have an intention for the culture? Like, was there like a strategy at play, or were you just like just being yourself and it kind of happened, or was it more intentional? Like, did you get to a point where you're like, okay, there's 1,000 people hanging around now. How do I like control this? How do I lead this steer this ship?
Oh my goodness. Well, do you know what? First of all, the group always feels small to me. I know that sounds
Uh-huh.
crazy when you look at the number wise. Obviously, we've never all been in the same room together. And I have this persona of Facebook. I've become like, I don't know. I put up a wall with Facebook and I pretend like I know I'm putting stuff out there, but I don't look at it as like 1,000 people are looking at me. I don't know. I can mentally put that in the back of my head and just do what I want to do and say what I want to say. But yes, absolutely. Do you know what? I think being a good leader is about growing and it's about, showing, I show who I really am in this group. So I
Mm.
would say, I really did everything I learned that first year in my business before I moved on to starting this, this group or developing this group over time, everything I learned there, I feel like I took a lot of that with me. Putting myself out there in the community and taking that leap in my business, and that really, it started to shape, honestly, what I believe became mompreneurs today. If you, I wouldn't have been able to probably start this group if I hadn't started my business first. Even though they don't necessarily, one isn't because of the other. In some ways, they definitely are. It all started in 2020 with that start of that journey. And it was just, I feel like it was almost like a natural development to go from one to
Yeah.
the next. So I, no, the way that I look at this group is, we're here. I have to stick to like the main pillars of why I am now doing this. And one of them is to connect women, to have integrity in what we're doing, and to be nice to each other. It's not about competition. Like, I feel like that's the thing that could really tear a group like this apart is, being competitive, one upping each other, things like that. I do stick to very strict kind of guidelines and what we can do within the group, and I definitely hold people to it. And you would think that it would be something that could limit us in certain ways, but I haven't seen that happening. I've only seen us
Well, yeah.
growing. I've only
That's
seen us
good. That's
growing.
what good rules do. They
Yeah,
they
you
provide structure and guidance, but without like
Yeah,
suppressing.
you
Yeah.
really, but you really have to when you have that many people and they want, everybody wants something because you're inevitably going to get people that are there for a good, genuine reason, and you're going to get people who are there to take advantage of it. And it's just going to happen at the end of the day. And I just have to shut down, the negativity immediately. And honestly, I've only had a few instances. In the last, well, Mompreneurs will be a group in June for 3 years. So we're coming up on our 3 year anniversary. And I have only seen a few instances that I've had to really like shut down. Everything else is, of course, Facebook and spam and all those things coming through Facebook. So, yeah, do you know what? I've been really, really, you attract, you give out this energy, and I feel like that same energy has come back. And that all started when I first put myself out there in the beginning, just as a
Yeah.
genuine mom and what I was looking to get out of it. If I would have
Yeah.
said, I'm a mom starting a networking group, okay, great. Then maybe that would have changed and it would have gone more down, that road. But that's not how I started it. And I wouldn't say that that's my advice. That you can't start it something like this that way. I just think whatever the true reason you want to do something, you have to put it out there that way. You can't put it out there as something else to cover up. If I truly was trying to do this to network and grow my business, then I should say that. I should say that this is for me to expand my network, to grow my business. This is my business. but I didn't do that. And literally the energy I initially put out in this group and continue to consistently put out in this group is what I got back. And I have women say to me all the time when we come into events, because my group is very much an in-person group, you know, that those are where the real connections happen, is when people get together face to face. You know, you can only do so much online, and I love, you know, social media for everything that it can be for us. It's definitely a huge part of everything I do, but being in person and connecting is where all the true relationships. I have not seen one relationship form specifically online that has been like a long lasting relationship. Eventually those people have to connect in another way. Even if it's the way you and I, even if it's like on a Zoom, you know, maybe they
Mm-hmm.
repeatedly do like connect face to face virtually, but the biggest relationships, the most meaningful ones that have had the biggest impact have been people at one point getting together face to face.
I'm so
And
glad you're saying that, because a lot of, obviously social media has changed the game in terms of the way that we do business.
mhm.
And now there's just this constant pressure to, like, everybody wants to be an influencer. It's like, how many followers, and, can I get viral, and can I, and I think especially in the industry that you're in, when you're in beauty, and there's some real big people out there pulling in some big numbers
Oh
and
yeah.
doing some really big things with beauty. And every time I'm coaching a client, like, this is like the new aspiration that they have, like, how to, and I'm like, no, like, there's plenty of business to be had belly to belly.
Mhm.
And there, for many of us, that is actually a much more authentic way
Mhm.
of doing business. And I just think it allows you to create a deeper relationship, and that ultimately is much more powerful in terms of leveraging business. So I'm really glad that you're saying that. It's one of the other reasons I love the what you've done and the philosophy and idea behind mompreneurs, because I'm like, oh my God, yes, let's get together.
Yeah. And do you know what? They love it, and it's amazing. I think I told you this when you were able to join us. When the women come into the group for the first time, you know, come to one of our events for the first time, they probably they've known about the group for a while, or they've been like inside of our Facebook group, but they haven't been able to, for whatever reason, make it out to an event.
Hmm.
And the first thing they always tell me when they come in, and it's the first time, like, oh, you're new, like, hi. And I welcome them, and they say, you know, I've been wanting to come to these so badly for like a year, for 2 years. And they're like, it finally worked out. And I'm like, you tried so hard for all that time. And I just thank them and give them a hug, because I think it's so amazing, because I know it's not easy. But the funny thing is, every single time that happens, that person that wasn't able to come, once they come and they see what they're going to get
They're a
out of it,
regular.
they're regular. They come back
They're a regular.
immediately. And I'm like,
Yeah.
now they're able to make it a priority, or maybe their schedule has changed. I'll give them that. But, you know, they're become a regular because they see what they're getting out of it.
No, people become masterful at handling things when they're incentivized in the right way.
Yes, they
It
do.
it really is. It's like when until they come, it's just conceptual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they don't really know what they're buying into. They don't really
Hmm.
know, and then they see, and it's so wonderful. I mean, I had a blast. Like, that luncheon, I was like, oh my God, this was so fun. And I felt like I made some real genuine connections. I have
Yeah.
some meetings coming up afterwards. Like,
Fun.
it was such a clean conversation. It was just a clean space. And honestly, I hadn't been networking in years, to be
Well,
honest. Like, if
really?
I
Well, you're an
yeah,
asset.
because I left New York, and then I was working for Limelight for 5 years,
Mhm.
and I didn't really do much networking,
Yeah.
and I relaunched my business 6 months ago. So now it's like, okay, time to get out there and start
Mhm.
meeting people.
Yeah.
So it was like, for me, it was like, oh, okay. I was mostly excited, though. I was mostly excited, but I remember, I think we should talk about this for a minute. Like,
Okay.
I remember how scary networking was when I first started.
Oh, yeah.
because I am, people think that I'm an extrovert, but I'm really not. I'm an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
I love people, and once I know you, I am like so much fun, and this is why people always think that I'm an extrovert. I'm like, no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
When I first walk into a room, I'm shy. I'm
Yeah.
actually like reserved and all that good stuff. So networking was wildly scary for me when I first started. I remember, and I'm going through that imposter syndrome that we talked
Yeah.
about at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
where all of a sudden I'm walking into a room, and I'm saying, okay, I branded myself as a life coach back then.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm a life coach.
Yeah.
And the only thing I have to prove it is this little business card that I designed myself.
Right.
And I always say that to me, the process of getting out, like the first year, my biggest
Mm-hmm.
accomplishment was like not throwing up in one of those rooms.
Oh my gosh.
It was that much anxiety written for me,
Oh my goodness.
but it was such a great learning experience,
Yeah.
and I always tell people, if you networking is great for the relationships, and
Mm-hmm.
it's great if you find the right group. That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. You have to find the right home.
Yeah.
When you find the right home, it becomes a space for you to practice talking about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
a place for you to practice embodying this new person that you're creating. When you start a business, you're creating a new identity, you're creating
Right.
a new person, and you need a safe space to practice that, to practice walking as this new person,
Mm-hmm.
um and then practice like pitching, like like actually speaking about your business in a way that's not creepy, in a way that feels natural, in a way that feels authentic to you. And those are all things that require practice, and I love networking was a gift in that regard, right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
make these amazing relationships in the process, and some of those people become friends for life, but also become great referral sources.
Mm-hmm.
I got into the New York Times through networking. I got into MasterCard through networking.
Mm-hmm.
I got like, National Urban, like all these big clients that I've had over the years.
Mm-hmm.
It came from a networking referral.
Amazing.
So I cannot, if you are scared of networking, find, a group like Mompreneurs if you're not in South Florida,
Mm-hmm.
although they're getting ready to create chapters all over the country apparently.
Yeah.
Because it can be really scary, and I think you're an extrovert, so for you it might come more naturally than some other people. But I want to say it is something that when you do it and you get in the right headspace about it, meaning you are there to be in contribution, you are there to really get to know people, you're really there to be in service,
Mm-hmm.
it frees you up to have a great time.
Yeah.
And really just connect with people, without the agenda of like, oh, I gotta pitch, or I gotta sell, or I gotta, all that kind of stuff. um, so what's next for you and mompreneurs?
Well, a lot. Actually, we have a Mompreneur cruise coming up next month. So
Fun.
yeah, you can still sign up, guys. We still have. I think there's still availability. So we're doing our first cruise, which I'm super excited about. We're going to, let's see, we are taking off out of Fort Lauderdale. It's the last week in April, and we are going to Key West and Bimini. So it's a long weekend. Very excited about that. So that's like a nice like full weekend worth of networking.
How can people find out about that?
Okay, are we going to be able to post anything? Can we give them a
Yeah,
link?
give me all the links, all the
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you
Okay,
I'll
so
give you guys the link to it. Yeah.
we'll put the link in the show notes.
Yes. So Mompreneurs, we're celebrating 3 years in June, as I said, and I'm super excited. We have a lot going on. So we have so many events coming up. We have an event on March 19th at El Mariachi here in Coral Springs, and then we have events planned out right now through the summer. So I'll give you a link for that too. It has all the dates. So we have a lot going on, but also I'm going to be launching our website soon. So I'm working on that. There's a lot of surprises going to be in there that I'm not going to say quite yet. But we're building up a lot of resources within Mompreneurs. So yeah, stay tuned. There's things happening. And if yes, and definitely franchising. If you're interested in Mompreneurs and you want to get this idea going in your town or your state, definitely reach out to me.
Yay, I love
And
it.
I will help you through the process because I just want to go back for 1 second, Gary, and just
Yeah.
say, just repaint real quick because you had mentioned that I'm an extrovert. And do you know what? I never know how to, I can't label myself because I have
Mhm.
moments where I am shy as can be, and I have other moments where I'm ready to jump up on stage. Honestly, I always have a pit in my stomach. I was a mom in a bubble. I was in my bubble. I didn't have a community. I didn't even honestly, I've had the same friends for years, and most of them don't live here because I don't live in my hometown. So I was never in a place doing this where it's like, oh, you had all your high school friends and you grew up here. Didn't have that. I've moved around a lot. I was in my bubble. Everything I did was mostly with the people in my house or my parents who happened to live in town. So I was definitely in my bubble and I needed to get out of it. And everyone can benefit from networking, not just people who want to have a business or grow a business or start a business. Networking and getting out into your community, finding people that, like you said, the right group for you. Not every group's going to be the right group for you, is so beneficial in life. And I would say I would contribute me growing in life even more than I would in business because I am definitely a totally different person now. A part of me that always was probably there and dormant has come out in the last 4 years, and everything in my life has gotten better because of it. Even relationships I already had, everything has gotten better. Everybody needs to get out of their bubble. And for moms and even dads who start having kids and really start that, like they're so concentrated, we are on the convenience of what we can do within our families and within our schedules. There is a way out of that. Sometimes it takes people a minute because when the kids are really little, sometimes you don't know another way, but you'll see once you get out of that, even if it's just with one other family, and then you'll meet another family, and then you'll go to the park and you'll meet somebody else. That's all a form of networking, and you can do it in so many ways. It doesn't have to be in a formal group. It could be Mompreneurs, I honestly say, is quite casual. It's a quite casual group, but it's beneficial for everybody. So it's not just for entrepreneurs. It's for all of us. And I think post 2020, it's so important for all of us to put ourselves back out there again and to get out of our normal routines, because there is always room for growth.
Love it. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I hope you come back to the show soon. I really acknowledge you for all the work you're doing and the beautiful community that you're creating. And thank you for inviting me to be a part of it, even though I'm not a mom.
Well, do you know what? There's other people out there that benefits moms too, and I appreciate you very much.
I love to be a cheerleader behind the moms. Absolutely, any day.
Yes, and my lunch date.
All right, friend. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Till next time.
Yes, thanks so much, Gary. Bye, guys.
There's so many wonderful lessons in personal leadership and personal responsibility that we can learn from Gretchen's journey. But the thing that I really want to highlight is Gretchen's willingness to create what she was missing. I think many times our instinct is to wait it out, to let it pass, in essence, to avoid it. But I don't have to remind you that the pandemic was absolute chaos. Life as we knew it turned upside down, and the world just stopped working. But there was also a beautiful gift from that challenge. It forced us to take inventory of our lives. It forced us to look at what was working and what wasn't. It forced us to look inward and connect with what really mattered to us. Some, like Gretchen, embraced the process and threw themselves into the deep waters, but many didn't. Many resisted, avoided it, or maybe even resented it. And as a result, I think they ended up paying a bigger price. I think the most important part of Gretchen's journey for me is that she was just following her heart. Mompreneurs was born out of a deep desire to fill her cup, a need to connect. It wasn't a business strategy or a goal. She simply was feeling isolated and wanted to experience connection. That simple yet brave action was the catalyst for creating a networking group We're over 1,800 plus women and still growing every day. Her actions not only impacted her life, but also the lives of those 1,800 women, and in turn, their families, their customers, their communities, creating a massive ripple effect. So the next time that you wonder if your actions really matter, if your actions really have an impact, just follow your heart. And remember Gretchen and all the women of Mompreneurs. It may sound overly simplistic or even cliche, but just stop and take a look for yourself. How many times has your heart told you to do something and you just haven't listened? How many dreams or adventures lay on the shelf waiting to get to someday? Following your heart may sound a bit cliche, but it's easier said than done. It requires incredible courage, leaping into the unknown, and most of all, it requires taking ownership. I want to give a very special shout out to all the women of Mompreneurs in the Coral Springs, Florida area. I'm incredibly inspired by the community, the support, and the safe space that you have created for each other. Thank you so much for welcoming me with such open arms, despite my obvious shortcomings of not being a woman or a mom. If you're enjoying the podcast, I'm personally asking you to please support me by either rating, leaving a review, clicking, follow, most of all, please share it with someone that you think would really enjoy the episode. Remember, small actions do have a big impact. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Ownership Game with your host, Gary Montalvo. Make sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform, as well as subscribe so that you never miss an episode.